Monday night is here, and the AFL Round 1 results have sunk in for everybody. Some people are happy, some people are sad. It's just how things go. The AFL has officially been back for one round, and it might not be back for a while. So it's time to get into this review, and let's see how things have went. What's up, everybody? It's the Sports Code, aka Aiden. Welcome back to another video. As I said before, this video is all going to be about the Round 1 results for the AFL. A lot of interesting teams, a lot of surprising teams, and a lot of disappointment in just one round. It's been very interesting to see how people have taken to this first round. Now, I just want to say, before we get started, please like and subscribe if your team ended up winning, and let me know in the comments who was the most impressive team this week, as I will give mine towards the end of the video. This team was very, very good, and they deserve recognition, and I plan on doing this every match review. I want to give the most impressive team, in my opinion, for all of those weeks. And so I'd like for you guys to do the same if you're watching. Let me know who was your most impressive team in round 1. Anyway, it was very weird not seeing fans in any of these games. And at the moment, the AFL is delayed until May 31st, so we might not see football for a long time. So despite the circumstances, it was very good to see the AFL back. And it was very good to see a few teams that were kind of on the edge rise up a bit, and also teams that were doing fairly well kind of diminish. It's been interesting to see. The AFL is a roller coaster ride. Like, anybody could be first and anybody could be, well, not anybody, but a lot of teams that were expected to do well can fall, and a lot of teams that were expected to do badly will shine. And the AFL that's why it's so unpredictable in a lot of ways. So we'll get started into the very, very first round, the very first game of the first round. Richmond versus Carlton. Now, Richmond won this comfortably. I projected Richmond would win, and they won this comfortably in the end. It was 105-81, I believe. And this was a very exciting game, and you have to give Carlton credit where it's due. I think Richmond, obviously the reigning premiers, dominated in many aspects, but that second half from Carlton showed that there is a lot that could be done with that team, and there is a lot of potential there. I know Carlton fans like to hype themselves up every year, but I feel like there is positives to take from a game like that. And that second half, of course, with the injuries to their forwards, they can do damage in the forward line if they just had the right acquisitions. Because the midfield was very good today. The defense definitely needs to be worked on, like, by far. That's the biggest problem. But there is good potential there for improvement. And I think that's what Carlton fans need to strive for, to improve their team every year, because they will get to where they want to go if they could just gradually improve, like they've been doing. To be fair, they've done that in a lot of ways. And this season in this game, we've seen slight improvements from last season already. So look, it's a good sign. But Richmond obviously were the better team here. Richmond were comfortable. The second half caused a little bit of damage, but any opportunity Carlton had to get close, Richmond just sniffed them out and put them to the sword. So congratulations to Richmond, I guess, on winning the first game. A lot of people expected that, but, you know, these two have a rivalry that's so deep in a way that it's almost like it doesn't matter what team places where, they're going to give their all, and they gave their all. This is one of the more entertaining games to watch. Moving on to the next game, Collingwood versus Western Bulldogs. I projected Collingwood to win this game, and they did so, and they did so very thoroughly. And I feel really, really bad for the Western Bulldogs. Not necessarily because they played well, because it's the quite opposite. They played awful, and their entire team played awful. And we expected Bulldogs to be that team that could maybe get into that top 4, that could maybe give them a sniff at a premiership, and maybe could be that team, that underdog team like they were back in the day when they won the premiership. However, this performance, I know it's only one game, and there is time for them to gel. I said this before. They have their team chemistry will come at the end of the season, because they have a lot of new recruits, and they need to adapt to those new signings. But this game was just not a good example of what they can do. And Collingwood took advantage of that team the entire night. You name a stat in the AFL, and Collingwood won that stat over the Bulldogs. Tackling, marks, kicks, handballs, everything. Bulldogs did not have a sniff. And it could have been effort, or it could have been lack of quality. Whatever it is, Collingwood took very, very good advantage of the Western Bulldogs here. So good, well done to Collingwood, clearly and obviously the rightful winners. And for the Bulldogs fans, 10 weeks to kind of reevaluate what happened in that game, and hopefully you don't get to see a repeat against other teams. Because there's one thing about the Bulldogs, you never expect them to be outworked. You never expect them to be in a midfield battle where they're losing and losing well, but they lost the battle very well here, and you don't expect that from a Collingwood team. Collingwood team is very possession based, but they could do it all in that game, and they showed it. We'll move on to the next one. A little bit more exciting game here. Essendon versus Fremantle. This was the game that got a lot of international attention from the United States. And this game was really good to watch. I think for Fremantle, I'm very surprised that they ended up coming back, because I think Essendon held them pretty well in the first half. But Fremantle weathered the storm, ended up getting very, very close, but Essendon had to seal the deal. I expected Essendon to win this one, so I haven't got one wrong at the moment. But Essendon, they're both of these teams are unpredictable. I think with Fremantle and their injuries, and Jesse Hogan not being there, they don't necessarily have a good full forward. They did fairly well, and Essendon, I think they did well as well. These teams, as I said, they're unpredictable. No one really knows what to expect from them. But I feel like in the end, no one could really pick with 100% guarantee that team was going to win. So I think Essendon was a lucky guess for me, but they did perform well, and they were definitely the rightful winners. They could have won by more, but Fremantle, to fair play to them, did very well. By the way, I just want to mention that eye injury on 5, whoa, brutal injury, and seeing the photos, they're not a pretty sight. So I'm glad that the guy has 10 weeks to get to get that healed up, man, because don't ever tell me that the AFL is not a tough sport. It's one of the toughest sports in the world, and playing with an eye like that, an injury like that, and still playing through basically with one eye, you got to salute players like that. Those are the players that make this great game what it is today. No matter how badly they're hurt or how bad the circumstances are, they give everything to their teams. So another much respect for Nat 5. Congratulations. It was a good game from him as well. Moving on, Sydney versus Adelaide. Now, this is the first one I got wrong. How sad. Sydney ended up beating Adelaide. I projected Adelaide to win. This was a game that I don't really think necessarily both teams played well, to be honest. Both teams did not play very well. It really felt like bottom half football. And these two, 74-71, I believe the score was in Sydney's favour. And there's not really much to say about this game. That both teams were just a little bit average, and there wasn't really much specialty going on. However, the score was close, so the game was obviously close. And I really thought with 50 seconds left, Walker could have won this game. But Tex Walker for Adelaide. But apparently he wasted a lot of time, and I don't really know what happened. Obviously he didn't score, otherwise they would have won. But yeah, it is what it is. And Sydney rightful winners, I guess. And I don't really expect much from both of these teams just because of the young talent they have. They're going to end up sacrificing a lot of games to improve young talent. And sometimes teams just need to be in that stage in order to get better in the future. So hopefully for both of those teams, they can end up performing well in the next few years. But I just feel like this year's not their year. Moving on to another game, Port Adelaide versus Gold Coast. I projected Port Adelaide to win, and they not only did they win, they won very comfortably. Now, Port Adelaide is a team where I expect them to be in the 8 and maybe even in the top 6. But the way that they have dealt with Gold Coast was pretty convincing. I mean, the score was 76-29, so it's just not a good look for Gold Coast, is it? A lot of people have said that Gold Coast could be that sleeper pick that could actually do quite a bit of damage in the bottom half of the AFL, maybe not finish in the last or second last. And this game doesn't really reflect what people are saying now, does it? Now, Gold Coast fans, because I'm going to be honest, I didn't watch this game. I kind of expected something like this to happen. So let me know, Gold Coast fans, what did you guys think of this performance? Is there something I'm missing? Did I miss any good performances? Did I miss that Gold Coast played well but just couldn't finish? Like, I don't really know how this game went in terms of the story behind it, but from what I'm looking at, I think Port Adelaide just dominated in every way, and it capitalised on a pretty bad defence. So yeah, if that's the case, then I guess I'm glad I didn't watch it. But if there is something I'm missing, please let me know. We'll move on to the next game. Geelong versus GWS. I projected the Giants to win this one, and I'm very happy with my choice. Both these teams, in my opinion, played well. And for Geelong, I know the score doesn't really reflect it. It was 105 to 73. I know the score doesn't reflect it, but I really think Geelong did play well. However, GWS is just another level. And I said this to my friends at the start of the season. I think GWS could finish top of the ladder. And the reason why, because they have something to prove now. Getting smashed in a grand final like that, it's not a pretty sight. It's GWS players and fans will have to remember that and take it towards this season. And I know it's just round one, but they dealt with a very fantastic Geelong team with style. They were very, very dominant and arguably the best team in this round. But it's just another situation of Geelong potentially just being a team that's a little bit too old. I know when I said, and I made a mistake when I said this in the last video and the predictions video, but I said Geelong didn't make much investment. Well, that's not necessarily true because they have made investment, but their investment, despite the low number, has been very good investments. But it's just not going to fix a whole team that's gotten a year older. Their team's probably the oldest team in the AFL, if I'm not mistaken. So a there has to be a little bit of youth being put into that team as well. And there's probably something I don't know, but I think Geelong, as good as they were just not on the level of GWS, and that's just how it is. And we, as GWS, as much as fans don't like them, as much as everyone says they're AFL best team, eventually this is their only really one of their only opportunities to really succeed now, because all that help from the AFL, if that doesn't get you a premiership, then you're going to be the laughing stock of the AFL for a while. So for GWS, this is their opportunity to really solidify themselves as a team in the AFL. As good as they are, they have to get a result at some time. And everyone's going to say, yes, it's an AFL made team, and it's true. And no one likes GWS if you're not a GWS fan. Sorry, it's just how it is. But at this moment, this is their chance to prove something to the world, and they have to take advantage of games like this. They look fantastic, and hopefully, for them at least, they can prove to the AFL by finishing first, by getting into the grand final, and maybe winning it, that they're here to stay, no matter the help or not. They did it in the end, and the AFL got what they wanted. But we'll see what happens with that. At the end of the day, the help has to stop eventually. So if they're just going to keep failing, the help is not going to be there for much longer. So yeah, this is the opportunity to take something here. And yeah, going into the next game, very, very surprising result here. St Kilda versus North Melbourne. Now, no one expected anything from North Melbourne, to be honest. And St Kilda was considered one of the most hyped teams in the AFL. They have a stacked forward line, stacked midfield, stacked defence. But they lost here. North Melbourne beat them by 2 points. Again, I feel very bad by saying I didn't watch this game, but I really wish I watched it, to be honest. But North Melbourne, a team that was projected to, no one really knew what they were going to be about, but everyone expected them to kind of be below par. They played all right here. I mean, both teams didn't really play necessarily well. It was a very low scoring game, 56 to 54. But again, they beat a St Kilda team that was hyped to and beyond belief, and they've ended up beating that team. So, is that a sign that North Melbourne might overachieve this season, or is it just one game? Let me know what you guys think. Is it just that one game? Like, anybody could beat anybody on any given day. Is that just one of those situations, or are North Melbourne really this team that is being overlooked and is going to overachieve? Let's see. It's an interesting game to think about. I projected St Kilda to win this, obviously, and ended up being wrong on that one. And North Melbourne, congratulations to North Melbourne fans. You have 10 weeks or so to enjoy that victory, and we'll see how the rest of the AFL season goes for you guys, because this win is definitely an important one to get your momentum going. Moving on into the next game, the second last game of the AFL Round 1 season, Hawthorn versus the Brisbane Lions. Now, I think Hawthorn pretty much had this under wraps since the start of the game. Brisbane didn't look very good today, and Hawthorn they looked all right. They looked pretty decent. The score was 90-62. Is this a sign that Brisbane overachieved last season? They ended up finishing, I think, third last season, and they lost to a Hawthorn team that's not at their best, but they looked at their best today, and Brisbane didn't really have a chance at all in this game. I projected Brisbane to win just because of how well they played last season, but this just goes for saying last season doesn't necessarily mean that this season's going to be any better. I don't really know much of Brisbane's investments in the off-season, and I really don't know anything about Brisbane, to be honest, besides of how well they played last year. But this year, it's just a sign that there is a possibility that this is just a one-hit wonder for Brisbane. Only one game. I have to keep saying it. Like, I can't stress it enough. This is only one game. We have 16 more games to go to really identify what all of these teams are about. This is only based on the very first game and what I have to say, because at the end of the day, I can only go based on one game. I don't want to go based on last season for a results-based video, because last season doesn't matter anymore. This season is what it's all about, and Brisbane didn't look very good. However, Hawthorn looked very good, and I think obviously the rightful winners here. And at the end of the day, they got what they deserved out of this game. Brisbane fans, let me know what you guys think. Did you guys think that Hawthorn were better, or did you guys feel like you played better, but again, the scoreboard didn't show it? Let me know. And the final game, I'm sorry that this video is taking a while. The final game, West Coast versus Melbourne. My favourite team, the Melbourne Demons. And I have to say, up forward, we are the worst AFL forward line in the competition. And I can't believe that it's going to take another year of no forward line structure for Melbourne. I projected West Coast to win this game because, honestly, as much as I love Melbourne, I did not see them winning this game. I can't, because West Coast are just so dominant. But honestly, I don't think West Coast were at their best today. And I think Melbourne, for the most part, especially in the midfield, really played well. Jack Viney was a monster. And in the midfield, the midfield game is where Melbourne are the best. They are one of the more dominant midfields in the AFL, but their forward line is arguably the worst, and their defense, the defense of Melbourne, is not necessarily good either. And West Coast took advantage of both of them. I watched this game very closely because obviously I'm a Melbourne fan. West Coast had an extra man in their back line the entire time because they know that Melbourne's forward line is weak, and they're not necessarily looking for targets in there. They're just kicking it up and hoping for the best. And that's something that needed to change last year, and I'm very surprised that nothing has changed this year. And something in the next 10 weeks, we seriously need to have practice in hitting targets, because in the end, if we don't hit a target, we're never going to succeed in the AFL. And as good as our team is midfield, and even we have good names in the forward line, but the way that it's structured is not good enough. So hopefully that could be rectified. And West Coast took advantage of a very weak very weak forward line for Melbourne. And defensively, I think defensively we did well. Kennedy didn't have a sniff. Stephen May locked him down the whole time. However, all those other people were free. West Coast forward line was basically a kick to kick. And in the end, they got what they deserved. The score was 78-51. I think Melbourne were one of those teams where they performed well in certain areas, but they got dominated in other areas. And that's the best I can explain it. Hopefully, I'm not too biased, because maybe I'm thinking Melbourne played better than they did. But it was very disappointing to see how badly we actually played in that forward line. And all that hard work in the midfield was for nothing, because we won the midfield battle. I will say that as a biased fan or non-biased, I don't care. We won that midfield battle. If we could kick straight, maybe the things would be different. But West Coast were just so dominant that it just didn't give us a chance. And fair play to West Coast. Everybody kind of expected that, to be honest. So those are all the games. I'm going to say the most impressed and least impressive teams in this competition in the round one. So I have to say the most impressive team was Collingwood. And it's not... I know the GWS were good, and I know the Port Adelaide played good, but Port Adelaide played a team that just wasn't necessarily up to the level of them, and it was clear and obvious. Collingwood played a team that was very good, and they impressed, and they really, really impressed the fans, and they impressed themselves, to be honest. 'Cause I didn't expect them to play that well, but they really decimated Western Bulldogs, and vice versa. As much as I would have to say the Gold Coast was the least impressive, everyone expected that. So I'm going to say the least impressive team was Western Bulldogs. Obviously, these two teams versus each other, but the differences were just so clear, and you don't expect that from a team like the Bulldogs. I've never expected that from a team like the Bulldogs. It's only round one. Things can change. Let me know what you guys think. Congratulations to Collingwood for being the most impressive team in round one. And hopefully, whenever round two comes around, I could do the weekly thing like this again. It's been really fun to make. I love talking about the AFL. And sometimes it's really tough because I have to keep watch of all these teams. And I don't necessarily know. I'm not a genius in the AFL. I don't know everything that happens in the AFL. But uh, it is the best sport in the world, so I love to watch it. Anyway, I want to thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. Sorry for the 20-minute video. Look, man, it's to make a review on all these games, give a quick opinion, and then obviously giving my impressive and least impressive teams. It takes a while. So anyway, thank you all for watching. Again, please like and subscribe if you're new. This is the Sports Code. Take care. See you for round two. Peace.